take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, March 5th, 2015. Typo. And it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Maybe it came a little early here. It's like Groundhog Day going on. Glad to have you here for the show. We have got a lot of news, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more to bring you on today's show in this next 2 hours. Thanks for joining us every weekday here at 420radio.org, 3 p.m. Pacific. We are live. If you're listening to us on podcast, you ought to check out the live show sometime and get involved with our chat room. All sorts of great people hanging out there from all over the country, nay, all over the world. We got folks from Utah and Florida and Montana and Arizona and, of course, Oregon and all over the place. So get involved with the chat room, meet some new friends. You'll be glad you did. On today's show, we're going to bring you new footage from the Portland Normal meeting that took place on Saturday, a much better example than what I played in hour 2 a few days ago. Wanted to make sure this made it to the podcast, the first hour podcast. So at 5:30, we are going to hear from Anthony Johnson from New Approach, Oregon. He was the chief petitioner for the Yes on Measure 91 campaign that got marijuana legalized in this state. He did a question and answer session with our membership, and we're going to bring that to you at 5:30 in our cannabis community chat. So stay tuned for that if you want to know the latest on what's happening for the implementation of Oregon's marijuana legalization. That'll lead right into my radical rant for today, which is, why is it so hard for elected officials to accept that people want legal marijuana? Between the Oregon legislature, the lobbyists for the cities and counties, the sheriffs in Colorado, all of these elected officials just cannot believe that a majority of the people believe we shouldn't treat marijuana users as criminals. We're going to talk about the latest developments on that in the Radical Rant at the end of the show. Also on the show today, in drug war data mining, Radley Balco takes a stab at NYPD Chief Bratton. You know, he's the one who says that murders are up in New York City because Colorado legalized weed. I'm not sure how that works out, but, maybe it's the chaos theory that butterfly can flap its wings in China and affect the weather patterns in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things. We'll take a look at that coming up and give some actual statistics from Denver and Seattle on their homicide rates, how they've fared after an entire year of marijuana legalization. Also, we'll have time today for Behind the Headlines, where interesting development in the world of allergies as the rise of the reporting of marijuana allergies is taking place as it becomes more legal and widespread across the country. We'll take a look at the science behind that and what kind of reactions people can have to marijuana that aren't so pleasant. But before we get to all of that, we've got our 420 radio news. And in the headlines today, we have got it's Thursday. Where the hell is my news when I need it? Too much stuff going on here, folks. In the news today, the sheriffs from Colorado and in Kansas and Nebraska filed that lawsuit to strike down legalization in Colorado. We've got the cities and counties in Oregon warning of lawsuits if they don't get their way on legalization. The Council of the District of Columbia has passed on a bill to end the practice of pre-employment drug testing in the city. Lawmakers in Rhode Island have filed a bill for marijuana legalization, and a sheriff's deputy in Florida shoots an unarmed marijuana suspect in the face, killing him. That's for Thursday, March 5th, 2015. We're finally on the right day. I understand marijuana can cause time expansion, but this is ridiculous. Right back after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. Oregon has joined Washington and Colorado in legalizing marijuana. We're Portland NORML, the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws chapter in Portland, Oregon. Join us as we celebrate the launch of an exciting new era in marijuana freedom in Oregon. Our job has just begun. Powerful interests want to white out the most important portions of Oregon's legalization law. By joining Portland NORML, you add your voice to the thousands who voted for Measure 91 and want it to be implemented as written. The people have spoken. Now it is time for the legislature to obey the will of the people. Find out more about Portland NORML at portlandnormal.org. Attend our monthly membership meetings on the fourth Saturday of the month. See our website for more details. Portland NORML, ensuring responsible adult marijuana consumers are afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as beer drinkers.
Big Daddy thinks.
Funky roller ring.
What's happening? Big Daddy here, and I want you cool cats to come and chill over at my pad, the Funky Roller Ring.
Oh yeah.
We'll be grooving every Thursday night, right here on 420 Radio.
Funky roller ring.
What can I do when you got me going? You got me going. Hey, hey. You got me going.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today. It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Thursday, March 5th, 2015. Sheriffs from Colorado and neighboring states Kansas and Nebraska filed a lawsuit that asks a federal court in Denver to strike down Colorado's Amendment 64 that legalized the sale of recreational marijuana and to close the state's more than 330 licensed marijuana stores. Lead plaintiff, Larimer County, Colorado Sheriff Justin Smith, calls the case a constitutional showdown. Each day, he says, he must decide whether to violate the Colorado Constitution or the U.S. Constitution. Colorado legalized recreational marijuana sales January 1st, 2014, but marijuana remains illegal at the federal level. Colorado is, quote, asking every peace officer to violate their oath, Smith said. What we're being forced to do makes me ineligible for office. Which constitution are we supposed to uphold? End quote. The out-of-state sheriffs say the flow of Colorado's legal marijuana across the border has increased drug arrests, overburdened police and courts, and cost them money in overtime. Lawyers for cities and counties warned of potential legal action as they continue to press the Oregon legislature to rewrite the marijuana measure approved by voters last November. The local governments want the ability to levy their own taxes on retail marijuana sales, and they want more latitude to prohibit local sales altogether. They argue that even under state law, cities and counties have the ability to go around Measure 91 to levy taxes. Sponsors of the initiative say they banned local taxes to ensure that retail prices stay low enough to compete with the black market. And they argue that only local voters, not a city or county council, should be able to decide to ban local pot sales. Measure 91 says that retail sales can only be banned in a city or county if local voters gather enough signatures to place the measure on the November general election ballot. A D.C. Council committee on Wednesday unanimously advanced legislation to ban employers in the nation's capital from testing prospective employees for marijuana until after a job offer is made. But the law won't free employees to light up without consequences. Employers will retain the right to screen for drugs after making a job offer and to enforce their own drug policies with employees. Quote, "It's time for employers and employees to get used to the idea of marijuana being legal," end quote, said D.C. Delegate Vincent B. Orange. Nothing in Orange's bill upends the prohibition on federal workers using marijuana. Government contractors who must certify a drug-free workforce and those who hire for sensitive security positions could still continue to test for marijuana before extending a job offer. Employers also could still set their own terms for employment and require random or periodic drug testing of employees. Lawmakers in Rhode Island are expected to introduce a bill into the state legislature today that would legalize marijuana for recreational use and create a legal retail market in the state for the sale and taxation of the commodity. Under the proposed law, the Marijuana Regulation, Control, and Taxation Act, adults 21 years old and older would be able to grow one mature marijuana plant and possess up to 1 ounce of pot. The law would permit pot shops and growing facilities to apply for licenses with the Department of Business Regulation. State Senator Joshua Miller said in an emailed statement, quote, "Marijuana prohibition is an ineffective and wasteful policy, and we cannot afford to ignore it any longer. The legislature is perfectly capable of creating a system that will work for Rhode Island," end quote. Similar bills were recently introduced in Georgia, Texas, and Vermont. A Volusia County, Florida sheriff's deputy shot an unarmed man in the face while serving a marijuana warrant on Wednesday. Deputies say Derek Crucy, age 26, resisted arrest during the incident at his Deltona, Florida home. Crucy's friends, 6 of whom were at the house when a SWAT team entered, called the fatal shooting, quote, "murder." At 6:32 a.m., Deputy Todd Rabel, age 36, fired one shot, hitting Crucy in the face as he stood inside the doorway. Crucy was pronounced dead a short time later at an area hospital. The sheriff's department confirmed that Crucy was unarmed at the time. Roommate Stephen Cochran said Crucy wasn't wearing a shirt at the time of the shooting and didn't pose a threat of carrying a concealed weapon. The sheriff's office allegedly recovered 217 grams of marijuana, along with a scale, pipes, plastic bags, and about $3,000 in cash. This has been your 420 Radio News for Thursday, March 5th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420.
With over 1 billion people in the world, chances are there's somebody out there just like you. There are software engineers, pastry chefs, artists, and people with medical conditions. And what do many of these people have in common? They use marijuana. It's expected that marijuana will be legalized in California. And when that happens, what will be the biggest concern? Safety. That's where we come in. High Def Transit is a discreet shuttle service that also serves as a mobile vapor room. Members can medicate on board, while our certified drivers get you to your destination safely, so you can enjoy the ride. So hop in, make friends, and ride safe. High Def Transit.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
Get your tickets now for the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference March 15th and 16th at the Hilton, Eugene, Oregon, powered by MarijuanaPolitics.com. Former presidential candidate and 2-term New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson will deliver the keynote address. Harborside Health Center's Steve D'Angelo will present at the pre-conference VIP reception. You'll also hear from State Senator Floyd Przansky, New Approach Oregon's Anthony Johnson, Oregon marijuana attorneys Paul Loney and Leland Berger, and Oregon Liquor Control Commission's Director of Marijuana Programs, Tom Burns. Get your tickets at early bird pricing by acting now. Learn more at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference at ommBC.com. This conference will provide you with a head start for success in the expanding Oregon marijuana industry. Get your tickets today at ommBC.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 15 and a half after the hour. And today in Behind the Headlines, we're taking a look at a story from CBS News that tells us marijuana allergies are a growing problem, according to a new study. Marijuana use is becoming increasingly common, either for medical use or recreational use in 37 states now, or is it 38 with Virginia becoming a CBD state? I'll have to check on that. But doctors now are warning that it's possible to be allergic to pot. And so people that are having allergic reactions, especially in states where marijuana is legal, the immunologists, these, what do you call it when you, allergologists, whatever they're, these specialists should be aware of the fact that that is another possible allergen. So it's kind of interesting. This study was published this week in the journal Annals of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. It's you got to get it, can't put that reading down. They rounded up the medical evidence on allergic reactions to marijuana. They say it's pretty uncommon, but it's been reported, and it's being reported. Allergist. Thank you, chat room. I'm just having a terrible time today. I'm still on Wednesday, remember. But cannabis pollen can cause allergic rhinitis, eye inflammation, asthma. It's also possible touching the plant can cause skin reactions like hives, allergy, itching, puffiness, swelling around the eyes. And exposure to marijuana smoke can cause symptoms like nasal congestion, sneezing, coughing, wheezing, bloodshot eyes, and an itchy throat. Another potential allergy risk comes from eating edible cannabis products. There was a serious reaction a person had to hemp seed encrusted seafood. They needed antihistamines and a shot of epinephrine. Now, the later tests, a lot of people, seafood allergy, but they went and tested that later and found, no, the guy wasn't allergic to seafood at all. It was the hemp seed that was the problem for this guy. And anaphylactic shock can be serious, even life-threatening condition for these folks. And because of more common marijuana and now it being allowed to come outdoors, people worry about the pollen and how that can cause the allergic reaction. And marijuana pollen, cannabis pollen, I should say, is very buoyant. It can fly for a long time. The folks discussing industrial hemp grows down in Southern Oregon are postulating it could fly 3 to 10 miles without much difficulty at all. So that's going to be really difficult for people who are allergic to this. Now, the study, when they asked them what people should do if they're sensitive to marijuana, they said, quote, as with other allergens, avoidance is recommended, end quote. And that's where I think we need to really highlight the conclusion in this particular story, because I can just hear a Kevin Sabet or a Ben Court or a Christian Thurstone or one of these prohibitionists bringing this study up as a reason why marijuana needs to be prohibited, why it's bad to continue legalizing marijuana because, God forbid, somebody with an allergy might be affected by it. By that logic, we should ban Snickers bars because there are people that are allergic to peanuts. Now, it makes no sense here to take these allergy risk warnings and to use them, to weaponize them, if you will, as a way to fight against marijuana legalization. But I can guarantee you that's how it's going to be used. So as reformers, we need to start thinking about how to address this situation. It is probably going to be used to back up the idea of no public consumption because somebody nearby might have an allergic reaction to it. And it could also be used to ban outdoor growing for people if the pollen is likely to be around people that are allergic. So we need to get ready for this and have some talking points to go when it comes to defending our right to home grow, defending our right to reasonably be able to use marijuana like adults are allowed to use alcohol and tobacco. I understand some people are allergic to cigarette smoke, but I haven't yet heard anyone call for mandatory criminality and arrests and seizures and SWAT teams over cigarettes.
Hey, everybody, we're all going to get late.
Our chat room runarounds mentioning that a bunch of school districts that do ban Snickers bars and anything that has nuts in them for just that reason. You know, I don't ever remember as a kid ever knowing anybody who had an allergy to peanuts. I imagine they must have existed. Are people just becoming more allergic in general as a species?
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
Funky Roller.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening, Groovy Cats? This is your Funk Master of Ceremonies, Big Daddy, and I want you to join me every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Your home of soul, funk, and disco, baby.
Funky-licious.
There's always a party at the Funky Roller Ring.
Are you in the market for portable vaporizers now? Get online to vapes.buzz, the quick and easy link to portablevaporizers.now.com. Vapes.buzz has everything you are looking for, including vape pens, herbal vaporizers, e-juice, parts, accessories, and more. Visit vapes.buzz and use promo code 420radio to get 10% off your online purchase, or just give them a call at 866-264-2415. Vapes.buzz. Get vaping, baby! Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour. And on Monday, the New York Police Department Commissioner Bill Bratton gave a press conference that has been mocked by all of us in the marijuana reform community, where he blamed a slight uptick in murder. Now, they've had 54 murders in New York City in January and February, and they had 45 in January and February of the previous year. And he blamed that slight uptick on marijuana. Here's the quote from NYPD's Chief Bratton. Quote, "The seemingly innocent drug that's been legalized around the country. In this city, people are killing each other over marijuana, more so than anything that we had to deal with in the 80s and 90s with heroin and cocaine. In some instances, it's a causal factor, but it's an influence in almost everything that we do here." End quote. Well, important to note that being an influence just means that they're finding weed. Right? That doesn't necessarily mean that weed was the subject or the reason or the cause of the murder. In fact, he even in his statement says in some instances it's a causal factor, meaning in most instances it's not. But even if that's true, we are only talking about 8 weeks of data here, just January and February. I mean, maybe the NYPD slowdown of not writing tickets and enforcing basic public laws, maybe that had something to do with it. Who knows? But even if we went on this same trend for the first 2 months of 2015, New York would end with 383 murders. We'd have a total of 383 for the whole year if January and February hold up. In 1990, New York City had 2,245 murders. And if I remember correctly, marijuana wasn't legal for any purpose back in 1990. Interesting. The NYPD seems to think, and this was confirmed by one of their crime analysts, that the problem is ripoffs. Marijuana deals gone bad. Which I'm trying to figure out why that's an argument against legalization when there are no murders in the pot shops, when people are exchanging money for marijuana there. In fact, let's take a look at the places where they have pot shops, because my goodness, if marijuana legalization in Colorado has caused murders to go up in New York City, imagine what it must have done in Denver. Let's see. Homicides dropped 24% in Denver last year. 24% decline in homicides. Robberies were down 3%. Burglary was down 9.5%. Overall violent crime dropped 0.7%. That's in Denver, where they have 330, well, the state has 330 pot shops, where there are mega warehouses growing weed, packaging it, processing it, and selling it to adults. Murders went down 24%. Now, in Seattle, they did increase slightly. In Seattle the year of legalization. The year before, 23 murders. This year, this most recent year, 26. Ooh, 3 more murders. Now, it's hard to blame that, though, on marijuana legalization because, unlike Colorado, Washington State doesn't have home grow. With no home grow, that's going to incentivize people to get their marijuana from either medical, recreational, or the black market. But medical, you got to have a card. Recreational is way overtaxed. And so there's still plenty of incentive to be visiting the black market in Seattle, Washington. This is one of the silliest things that we've had yet to hear from the drug warriors. And nobody here on our side is arguing that the 24% decline in murders in Denver were because of legalization. Might have had something to do with it. Maybe a few bad ripoff deals didn't go down. If New York is claiming that ripoffs are the problem in New York City, then a legal market in Denver where ripoffs can't happen, wouldn't that lead to a decline in those murders? But I won't even go that far. I'll just say that it's a much better explanation than what Bill Bratton has come up with in New York City.
420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
There's so much I worry about as a mom. Stephen Harper thinks that organized crime should continue to profit from marijuana prohibition. Imagine regulating marijuana like alcohol and cigarettes with a strong and clear educational message, making it more difficult for my kids and your kids to access. Drug dealers don't ask for ID. Stephen Harper does not have the kind of judgment we need to protect our children, authorized by the Normal Women's Alliance of Canada.
Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult marijuana prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat.
We return to the Portland Normal meeting that took place this Saturday. Anthony Johnson from New Approach, Oregon, taking questions and answers from the membership.
All right, let me help out with this. We are recording, so we want to make sure we get the questions on the mics. Herb will be on this side. I'll be on this side. Who's got a question? Here we go. Question number one.
First off, Anthony, thank you very much for all the work that you put into this. I'm not alone in knowing all the time and how much effort this takes. Since you spend so much time in Salem, I went down there for the first time last week and sat in on the Joint Committee. They're open to the public, so Anthony is right that you can go there and support by just being there. And but since you spend so much time there and you have your finger right on the pulse, how do you feel that they're going to go? Because I know there's a lot of unknowns right now. We're all just kind of waiting. But how do you feel that they are going to have for the licensing requirements just being from like opening up? Sorry, I just woke up like a half hour ago. How do you? Because my concern is that they have licensing open. Just I see this not only as a great opportunity for our state to get tax revenues, but I see that this is an awesome opportunity for Oregonian small businesses. And we've been hearing a lot from, who are they going to allow? Who are they going to accept licenses? Who are they going to give license to? I'm just wondering what's your feeling? One, what's your feeling about opening licensing just to Oregonians? And two, what do you think that they're going to do with that?
So Measure 91 was silent on residency requirements. I don't really have a position either way on residency requirements. Probably not going to take a position on that. Don't necessarily oppose them. I think the legislators' inclination is to protect Oregon businesses as much as possible and the small kind of mom and pop shops. And so if I had a crystal ball or trying to predict if there were going to be some type of in-state residency requirement for at least, if not owners or 50% owners, or similar to the medical marijuana facilities, you have to have a manager, person responsible for the facility be an Oregonian resident. I think that's most likely going to occur. I think the one thing that's probably up in the air is how much investment can come from out of state. I think there is a concern about big money coming from out of state and kind of controlling the market. But at the same time, if somebody is a mom and pop operation and they want to expand, say they're supplying a medical marijuana dispensary now, but they'd like to expand to a Measure 91 license, maybe do both on the medical side and the Measure 91 side. And if they have a rich relative that lives in Colorado or California, their ability to get some investment or a loan from them, I think is probably something the legislators are open to allowing, particularly because no business can get a small business loan from a bank for a marijuana business at the moment. So if I had to predict, I think there will be some type of residency requirement, at least a manager or a co-owner that's an Oregon resident, at least for the first few years under the licensing system.
Okay, good. All right. Anyone else? Yes. Let's come over here.
Thanks for taking this question. I had a quick question about the school zones and dispensaries specifically. You talked about, the LCC or the OMP facilitating some kind of move if a school was to pop up in 1,000 feet of your dispensary. What provisions were they specifically, that you had in mind when addressing this issue?
The provisions as far as what exactly?
Well, you said that you touched down on if a school was to open up within 1,000 feet of an existing dispensary, there would be steps to to rectify that situation or to handle that in a specific way. I was wondering if you could actually elaborate on that a little bit more.
Gotcha. So the bill that's before the legislature, I believe it just opens up to rulemaking to come up with a process for that. And I think some of the things that would be debated, on one hand, would be you don't have to move at all. You could say let's say the school moves in 990 feet away from you. maybe that can suffice. Or you have a year to move, or maybe it can be amended that you have 18 months to move. But most likely a year to move to find a new place and to have the ability to not see your life savings go away. So that's probably the most likely thing, is to give you a time frame before you can move. Thank you, Sam.
Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Leo.
I was wondering if you could comment on the House bill that was introduced by Lou Frederick last week regarding the expungement of nonviolent marijuana crimes, and that take place before July of 2015.
Definitely completely in support of that. I don't know where that bill is at the moment, but I think it's something we should definitely monitor and throw our support. I do know we do have some legislators that's definitely important for, so I think it's something that we have a good chance of getting past this session, so it's definitely something to monitor. I don't think it has happened. Lee, are you aware of?
Aware that he had introduced a bill. I know that in 2013, the Oregon Criminal Defense Lawyers Association sponsored a bill that reduced manufacturing from an A to a B felony, so it could be expunged after 20 years, and changed the delivery statute to be in C felonies so that they could be expunged after 3 years. There was a glitch in it, however, that made it so if you got convicted today of manufacturing, you could expunge in 20 years, but you couldn't relate back. And there is a bill to fix that was scheduled for hearing this week in the Senate Judiciary Committee, which was pulled because of concerns about how Measure 91 affected it. So I'm guessing that between whatever it is OCDLA is doing and whatever it is Lou Frederick is doing, we're going to get some positive result that takes care of this issue. What is important, and what I hope groups like Portland Normal could work on, has to do with the fact that at any given time there's 100, mostly men, in Oregon prisons solely on cannabis-related offenses, and perhaps doing something. I have spoken with a dispensary owner who is going to be working with a group that the law school had set up at the Justice Institute on this, but it would be a good Portland Normal project too, to try and see if we can get Governor Brown to commute those sentences, and we could free the prisoners, because that is what Measure 91 is about. Building an industry is how we got to that, to the freedoms that we're going to have under 91, but the industry is secondary to ending the arrests and prosecutions and freeing the prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Anthony, over here.
So, hi, Anthony.
Steve.
I know that we have quite a few things that we're trying to keep track of here. I have at least half a dozen bills that I know I'm following. And one I'm concerned about is HB 2546 that adds cannabinoids to the Clean Air Act. I know the intention of that is that legislation is to protect minors from tobacco and e-cigarettes. But we're talking about trying to have, where's our pub, where's our vape lounge, and this is definitely going to inhibit that, and that is concerned. I've already emailed all the members of the committee, but I don't know where that bill is at, and I wondered if you were tracking that at all.
That bill's in the Health Care Committee?
It's passed out of committee, and it's going to get it's at its third reading in the House. It's going to be voted on soon in the House. I have a meeting scheduled on Monday to talk with Representative Buckley, who's one of the co-sponsors about it, but in email communications, he's indicated he didn't want to use that bill to create vapor lounges. Now, there may be one thing Russ and I agreed on, and that I testified about on 2641, is that Maureen Dowd wouldn't have wound up in a hotel room eating chocolate and wondering why nothing was happening and eating some more, if she had a lounge to go to. So it's critical that this happens, and I'd be curious, just kind of to build on your question, if you're hearing that from legislators, or some other vehicle besides House Bill 2641 that can address the need for that.
Yeah, I have heard that having excuse me, an exemption particularly for medical patients, or getting kind of the same type of treatment that cigar bars have for like a special license, those are possible. So I think that important for people to let their legislators know that bill, if it passes out of the House, which I expect it will then move to the Senate. So then we'll have a chance to either amend it then during the Senate, or tackle another bill that would, I think the list of priorities, I'm sure a lot of people would like to have cannabinoids. As far as you gotta say, if you're 18, you can't buy it, then that's completely acceptable. Then I think most people would like to see the cannabinoid be stripped out for everyone. If we can't get it for everyone, then at least for patients, and then if we can't do that, then at least to have a separate lounge like cigars have. So I think it's I think it's possible to do, and I think that's I think it's something we can work on this session, and definitely if we can't get it done this session, then future sessions.
There's no science to adding it to the Clean Air Act, and we're talking about fighting junk science or lack of science. I mean, cannabinoids are neuroprotective. There's all these studies about it doesn't do lung damage, the way tobacco does. I mean, there's no science supporting it being part of the Clean Air Act.
That is correct, Steve. I guess one of the things that is can be very maddening for everybody involved in cannabis activism is that science can kind of go out the window in the halls of the legislature or the halls of Congress. Or
hey, Steve, if you email me about that, I'll put together a fact sheet and here's the studies to look at thing that we can at least get to them so that they know that they're passing junk science.
I submitted as written testimony stuff from California Normal that Dale Geringer had provided me, that California Normal had submitted in some kind of like a county hearing on this issue. So, it's in the record anyway. And in fact, if you look up the committee, look up the hearing, look up the exhibits, you can find that there.
Yeah, but that science definitely it can't hurt. But unfortunately, good science doesn't always win the day in politics.
Any other questions?
Anyone else? Sam? I just wanted to add to that in terms of, and Lee, maybe you can testify this as well. You said that how many lobbyists were working on that bill right now, Lee?
There's 50 lobbyists were working on the bill.
Okay.
When I testified, Sam, I sat next to a guy from Reynolds, as in R.J. Reynolds.
Yeah.
So,
So with that in mind, for those of you who are not super familiar with the legislative process, once a bill passes out of one chamber, whether it be the House or the Senate, if it gets amended in the second chamber, it has to go back to the original chamber that it was in. And so if you're thinking about doing some kind of legislation with vapor lounges that has that kind of direct effect, I would heavily encourage you to look for a different bill to work it into, and just be mindful of what the original language is so you can make sure that they mesh. Because with 50 basically tobacco lobbyists working on that bill, I don't see any way in hell that they're going to allow you to move it back to another chamber, open it back up to make more amendments, and then push it through the other side. So just something to think about in terms of legislative strategy. Thank you, Sam. Anyone else over here on this side?
Hey, thanks, Anthony. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the fears that are being raised by the legislature. I think understanding fear as sort of the resistance to the progress that's being made, and if you could talk a little bit, and not just kind of the obvious, preventing it from getting into minors or DUI issues, but some of the fears that are sort of contained in some of the opponents of what's going on in Salem.
Some of the kind of fears that are brought up, I think the cities and like to bring up the fact that they don't think they get enough money and that they're going to have to spend more on enforcement than they're getting, even though Measure 91 gives 10% to cities and 10% to counties earmarked for the local law enforcement. And then you hear a lot of fears of how to track marijuana from seed to sale and not to have interference from the federal government, which I think is something that all of us are going to want to be paying attention to and have concerns about. And high concentrate THC products, butane hash oil, propane hash oil, things like that, especially things that are explosive, definitely, or can be explosive, not done properly, definitely concerns folks and people who are allies of ours at the legislature and opponents as well. Don't want to have a Maureen Dowd story hit the Oregonian a few days before 4 to 8 states are voting on legalization in 2016. So so the packaging and dosage and labeling of edibles, leakage into the underground market, federal interference, and ensuring that there's enough revenue to properly enforce are all big concerns and fears that folks have.
Anyone else over here?
All right, that's great. Give Anthony another hand for coming out here and spending some time with us, answering some questions.
Big thanks to Anthony Johnson for being a part of our inaugural meeting of Portland Normal. We'll be meeting again on the last Saturday, or the fourth Saturday, I should say, of March. That'll be March 28th at the Tony Starlight Room, 1125 Southeast Madison in Portland, Oregon. We'll also be streaming the meeting live on the Portland Normal YouTube channel. Stick around. We've got the anti-drug public service announcement of the day coming up next, and then the radical rant. Why can't officials accept that we want legal marijuana? And why don't they understand their duties under the law? Stick around. We're back right after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the activist radio station. You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Let a friend push you in, taking drugs, you gotta right, say no.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everyone. 50 after the hour, and today I'm hopping mad over what I'm reading in the local Oregon newspapers. Rob Beauvette, who's one of the lobbyists for the Associated Oregon Counties and the lobbyists there with the cities as well, are threatening our legislature to sue over what they want out of marijuana legalization. Now, the Measure 91 that we voted for here in Oregon, that 56.1% of Oregon voters supported, that passed with the greatest margin of any state that's ever voted on marijuana legalization, and that was supported by 71% of the people of the city of Portland. That Measure 91 specifically states that only the state shall have the sole right of taxation over marijuana. Now, it's not some wild idea we came up with. We copied it straight from the liquor laws. But they are suing. They're threatening to sue, saying they want to make sure that they can keep local taxes. Now, before Measure 91 passed, about 70 cities in Oregon passed their own local taxes on marijuana. That's right. They passed a tax on marijuana before marijuana was legal. They passed a tax on something that could not be bought or sold. So they pass these taxes, which generally are around 10%, but some cities as high as 40%. I think even one of them has a 100% tax on marijuana. They want to keep those taxes despite the fact that Measure 91, which again, as I would remind them, was voted for by more people than supported any statewide elected official in the last election, specifically said that it supersedes and repeals any local ordinance inconsistent with it. You know, like an ordinance for a local tax on marijuana that is inconsistent with Measure 91's sole taxation right of marijuana being vested in the state. And it's not as if the cities and counties aren't getting any marijuana money. The measure put 40% of the tax revenue to the Common School Fund. That's going to help a lot of schools in cities and counties. 20% is going to provide mental health, alcoholism, and drug services. Much of those services, by the way, currently provided by the counties. The Oregon State Police will get 15% of the pot tax revenue. City police will receive 10% of the pot tax revenue, and county police will receive 10% of the pot tax revenue. The final 5% is for the Oregon Health Authority to provide drug addiction treatment and prevention services. More than 70 cities and 3 counties have local pot taxes. Why don't they understand that we voted for only the state to tax marijuana and to keep that tax low because we learned the lessons of Denver and Seattle? We learned the lessons of Colorado and Washington, where they overtaxed marijuana as an excise tax and made the price of marijuana so expensive at the regulated legal marijuana shops that many people just continued to go to their medical sources that they've been getting it from, or in some cases continued to shop in the black market. So much so that Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes has talked about where there are pot shops having to kick pot dealers out of their parking lots on a regular basis who are undercutting those taxes. We learned that lesson, Rob Beauvette. You may not have been paying attention to legalization throughout the nation, but the rest of us have. And we learned that if you overtax pot, which is what's going to happen if you put it in city control, that all you do is provide opportunity to the illegal market. Why do our elected officials want so badly to help illegal marijuana dealers? And to threaten to sue? Gosh, where does that money come from? Where does all that lawyer time come from and expense fees and court costs come from? They come from the taxpayers. They come from us. You want to take our money to sue us for what we passed as a majority? How do you walk with balls that big? This is unbelievable. What the hell good is an initiative system if the people pass something by an overwhelming majority only to see a few lobbyists, a few state senators and legislators completely undo the major planks of the legalization we voted for? What the hell good is the initiative system? Hell, at least in Washington state, in their initiative system, when you pass an initiative, you can't muck with it unless you can get a 2/3 majority in the legislature, or if the people pass another initiative to amend it. That's why they had to wait 2 years after passing Initiative 502 before they could start monkeying around with what it said. Now, in that 2 years, they found that there was some mistakes. They found there were some things that were wrong, like capping how many outlets there were going to be, or not properly and in a timely manner licensing the growers. All sorts of mistakes they figured out, like taxing it 3 times, 25% at each level, was a huge mistake. We've learned from those mistakes. We have crafted what Ethan Nadelman of Drug Policy Alliance has called the gold standard of marijuana legalization. And the other thing, Bovett and Winkles, these guys from the counties and the cities respectively, these lobbyists, these lawyers want to use our money to sue us over. They want to have the right to be able to ban marijuana commerce, marijuana licenses, grow sites and processors and testing labs and retail stores. Now, they can't ban people's personal right to grow or possess, and I'm sure that's got them pissed off too. But they at least want to ban pot shops and businesses and grow sites. Measure 91 gives them that power. They can. You can ban. You can be a dry county if you want to be. You can be a dry city if you want to be. But you got to play by the same rules we got to play by. When we wanted to end our criminality, we had to gather enough signatures from fellow voters throughout this great state. We had to put it on a general election ballot, and we had to get it passed by a majority of the people. You have to play by those same rules. Measure 91 set it up so that if you, Scott Winkles, and the city of Newburgh, let's say, want to ban marijuana licenses, great. Put together a petition. Get enough voters to sign that petition, put it on the ballot in the general election, and if a majority votes to ban it, boom, no more pot shops. Now, of course, you don't get any of the pot taxes. That 10% for the cities, you don't get that if you don't have any licensees. That seems only fair, doesn't it? But no, Bovett and Winkles are fighting for the ability for just a city council on a Tuesday night meeting attended by 15 people could, on a 3-2 vote, ban all marijuana licenses in an entire city or an entire county. And that's specifically what Measure 91 said you can't do. Why do they want this power? Because they know if they put it up to a vote of the people, they know how the vote will go. They can see the same maps I can see on how the counties and the cities voted for marijuana legalization. And they know that anywhere near Portland or Eugene, not going to happen. Never going to get it banned. Threatening to sue to overturn the will of the people. That's a new low, and we will not stand for it. I can assure you that in my role as the executive director of Portland Normal, and with all the resources I have to muster, we will fight Scott Winkles. We will fight Rob Bovett. We will fight for the will of the people. We will fight for democracy to be implemented as intended. These undemocratic, unelected lobbyists are not going to snatch legalization from us. We've worked too hard, too many of our people have gone to prison, and too many of our people have died to let that happen. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Take a seat, you planet, you grow it, you dry it, you